me a couple of examples of the results you've got for people in the business world over the years.
Well, one of them was a few years ago when a gentleman came to me and he said he was worried about his cash flow. Really good at his business, which most people are, to be perfectly honest. He was doing something that he loved. So it wasn't a case of, well, you're in the wrong business. It just needed a shift in perspective about how things worked. And sometimes we're the ones that can't see. If my problem is a big spot on my nose, you'll probably see that because I can't see it. It could be obvious to other people. You're brilliant business coach, so you will see where people need help, but people don't know what they don't know.
And so what were the results you got for this guy?
And the result was that he was, I think it was something like he'd come in I saw him in June, and he said, I've got July. He said, August is coming up. I never do anything in August. And the cash flow is terrible. So I said, okay, I'm just going to go through some stuff with you that I normally do with pretty well everybody. And then we'll go with the flow and adjust it as we go along, depending on where you are with certain things. So I was with him for probably half an hour or so. I feel that we'd shifted what you would call a very subtle mental block, which I could feel something had moved. And I said, okay, just come back to me. I says, I think you should be okay now, but let's see. Anyway, I spoke to him again in September. He said, I can't believe it. He says, not only have I done some business in August, it's the best month, irrelevant, it's the best month I've ever had, including all the other months. So it's not the best August I've had, it's the best month I've ever had. And then he carried on. But the big thing is that 6 months later, I physically saw this gentleman again. And I saw him pretty regularly, probably every month, couple of months anyway. But he said, I've lost, I think he'd lost over 5 stone. And he said, I hadn't done anything to change my diet. My diet was still the same, but I'd lost 5 stone. So I was back to from about 17 to 12 stone, which is what he needed. And he said that was another byproduct of what our chat, because I'd done nothing else. And I can only think that not only did my business improve, it shifted whatever was, because I wasn't eating that much anyway, but it wasn't as if I was stuffing everything down. And it was logical that. So what was stopping him achieving his business goal? And that was moved. Also, was blocking him health-wise. So, in other words, something can impact everything. Yeah. If you remove what I would call a mental or emotional block, which usually comes from a trauma that we've had many years ago, but because we as human beings, to help to forget that or to cope with it, we will push it away or bury it, and then forget it, instead of dealing with it properly, how we're supposed to. In other words, feel the feeling, even though it might not be comfortable at the time, process it, and then let it go. but I go into detail about how to do that, and we've done that with people live on our even on our virtual calls. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be one to one, face to face. It can be
And then
it can be virtually.
Example.
Well,
okay,
virtually in the last Q&A I did, one of the members and there was probably about a dozen people in the Zoom call. And I asked if anybody got any. There were 2 or 3 questions, which were really good questions. So we'd been going probably 15 minutes, and nobody got a question. I said, "Okay, so nobody got a question. Has anybody got a challenge? Is anybody up for a challenge?" I hadn't planned this at all, and I just said, "Anybody up for a challenge?" Because nobody got another question. And I said, well, rather than me making up a question, because I said we've answered 3 really good questions, which seems to have worked very well. Has anybody got any challenges? Has anybody got any health challenges? And then I just suddenly said, look, a few years ago, I got put in this position where I had to take I was going to attend a group meeting of people looking into the kind of stuff that I look into, human performance. And the person taking the meeting had to cry off at the last minute. So the organizer said to me, "Oh, so and so can't make it. Can you step in, Mel? Can you just do I said, well, what do you want me to do? You know, on what aspect? Because I know I cover a lot of what I call modalities, because I've learned over the years and learning how people do different things to get the same results. You'll go to different cultures, different parts of the world. They'll do things differently. It's like food. They'll do things differently. But the taste is absolutely marvelous. So the results they get are fantastic. But we would never think of, is that the way you do it? We don't do it that way. So I've learned lots of different ways to do various things, but to get the same result. So I said, what do you want me to cover? I said, well, do what I would call one of your techniques, emotional freedom technique, or you can use the release technique, which, and I said, well, we'll do a mixture of 2. I said, but, so I went around the room. There was probably about a dozen people there. And one of the big things was that there were an awful lot of people. It's probably 7 or 8 out of the dozen people were struggling to sleep properly, to get a good night's sleep, proper night's sleep. Some more than others. So some were on what we call a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, well, I just can't sleep, to 6, 7, you know, I might get off. If I get up at 4 or 5 o'clock, I can't get back to sleep, whatever. And I'm still a bit groggy. But I said, okay. So we worked on that. And what I said was, we'll go around everybody, but everybody just join in. And then I specifically said, let me know in the morning, please message me your results, because I want you to take, they all gave me a number. I said, you've got a number now. Usually it would be 5 to 10, because if somebody's only 2 or 3, they're probably not going to mention the fact that that's a problem for them. But most of them were anywhere between 5 and 10. I said, let me know where you are tomorrow, because it'd be really good to get some feedback. So we went through that. There wasn't one that didn't have a positive, it didn't make a positive impression on them. In other words, they got a better night's sleep. And some were that that delighted that they actually rang me up first. Well, one rang me up about 10 o'clock, said, I've only just got up. I can't believe I can't believe I've slept through.
So cool. Such a
But
great result.
that happened again because we just did it with one person in the last Q&A a few couple of 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the gentleman said that he went from a 9, which is really you could see that would be really infuriating. But this had been going on for probably over a year now. Whether this had come as a result of something that had sparked off during the lockdowns and everything, when everything was everybody was all over the place. I know there's a lot of challenges because of that. He said, I've just gone down from a 9 to a 3.